Is Mortal Kombat at points embarrassingly bad? Yes. Yes, it is. Did I have fun watching it? Yes. Yes, I did. How is that possible? Well, when the movie's good, it's really good. There is stuff in here that, quite frankly, I'm glad I saw. I wouldn't have wanted to miss it. And I think if you are at all thinking of watching a Mortal Kombat movie, you won't want to miss it either. So you know what that means? A good section and a bad section. See, sometimes this movie feels like a 90s film that's ahead of its time. Like if you were watching this and it was an old film, you'd be like, oh wow, this is really ahead of the curve. But then other times, but it still feels dated at those moments. But then at other times, it feels like a modern blockbuster that's not quite up to speed, which is all very frustrating because the problems with this movie are so obvious that you wonder if anyone watched it before they released it. You're like, you could have made this movie genuinely great if you just changed that, and that, which anyone can see. But there's still enough good stuff in it that, again, I had a good time, to be honest with you. All right, so the good. The VFX. The VFX team, like in many movies today, did this film some serious favors. All the powers of the different characters seem effortless, very real, and exciting. You're like, ooh, that was nice. Gore also is pretty well rendered, I thought. And all the Sub-Zero stuff, it's very Frozen by way of a horror movie, as it should be. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I like this. Like, the VFX team had really nice ideas, basically. When the VFX are used, they level up the whole movie. By far, my favorite scene, don't worry, this is the non-spoiler review, but my favorite scene, because it's been teased in the trailers, is Reptile versus Kano. That scene was so incredible. I couldn't believe how good that scene was. It's everything in that scene works across the board. It's what this movie should be. You're like, everything. It's scary, it's funny, it's action-packed, it's new, it feels unique, it's it's like everything you would want a Mortal Kombat movie to be. I loved that scene. Whoever animated and designed Reptile, you're a genius. So on that note, some of the actors were quite good. Josh Lawson, what a gift to this movie is Kano. His constant commentary and pop culture references are very funny. Some of them are kind of obvious sometimes, but I gotta say, I really enjoyed it every time that he was on screen. They give the movie the fun quality that it needs to distract from a lot of its problems. Also, McCann Brooks does a great job as Jax. I know, I'm equally surprised. I didn't think he'd be a good Jax, but he really ended up being fantastic. Early on in the film, he says, 6 tours, bitch, or something like that, and I felt it. I was like, oh, that's the kind of representation I'm sure the military would love to have. He was very cool. Ludi Lin as Liu Kang also does nice work. It's the first time I've ever seen Lin play innocent, like really innocent. And he's very compelling. I was like, oh, this monk, he's like a monk-like character here. I was like, this guy's great. I'd love to study with him. And his friendship with Max Huang's Kung Lao, I thought also was very well realized. They both did a really nice job. They were innocent, but they weren't chumps either. I liked them both. Now, as you'd expect, Hiroyuki Sanada and Joe Taslim are both excellent, but used ridiculously little, especially Sanada. I'm like, what? I'm like, why is there so much Louis Tan in this movie when I could have, Hiroyuki Sanada? Anyway, the opening scene, which features both of them though, is fantastic. That's why, Warner Brothers released it to try and promote this movie. It is my second favorite scene in the film. It's really good. It's got genuine emotion if you haven't watched it. I wouldn't watch it early if I were you. If you haven't seen it yet, just watch the movie. It's got genuine emotion, a beautiful, almost fantasy-like setting, which is really cool in contrast to the horrific things that happen. And also, I liked the idea of China versus Japan, because that plays off of the real-world animosity between the two countries. Maybe we shouldn't elevate tensions between two real countries for the sake of a fantasy movie, but they did, and I thought it was interesting. I thought it was an interesting choice. I also really loved the score. Benjamin Wallfish does a really nice job, and like the VFX, the film is heightened whenever the music comes on. You're like, oh, this is good. It sounds actually, though, like the music used on the recent Flash promo, to the point where I'm like, did you use the Mortal Kombat music for that? Because Wallfish is doing both films. Because it has like the doo-doo-doo. You'll hear it. When you hear it, You hear it, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I like it in both places. I wouldn't mind if they used it in both films, quite frankly. I think it's very interesting. If Christopher Nolan can constantly use a foghorn, I don't know why Wallfish can't use this little in all of his movies. And I find it enchanting. The movie also had, I would say, an acceptable scope. Some of the locations were quite impressive, especially Raiden's temple, which helped make the movie feel somewhat epic. So I liked that. All right, now the bad. Lewis Tan's Cole Young should not be in the movie. Not the character, not the actor. The character is pointless and not cool. He just reeks of studio interference and designed by committee. They're like, oh, you know, it'd be cool. And you're like, it is not cool. It did not work out. How did any of you watch this and keep this character in there? And I feel bad saying this because Lewis Tan wants so much to be a movie star. And I really can feel that. And I think he's wonderful on social media. But wanting something does not make it so. And sadly, he's just not a very good actor. I'm sorry. I've thought that when I saw him in Iron Fist, and everybody was talking about how he should have been Iron Fist, and I agree that they should have had an Asian Iron Fist on the Netflix Marvel series. But it shouldn't have been Lewis Tan, and Lewis Tan shouldn't have starred here. He's just not good. And I'm also sorry to say that Jessica McNamee as Sonya Blade is equally not as good. They are just not professional actors. Nor is Laura Brent as Cole Young's wife. There's another, this is the non-spoiler review, so there are a couple characters I'm leaving out. One I liked a lot. Well, as much as I could for as little as they were shown. But anyway, whenever Lewis Tan, Jessica McNamee, and Laura Brent are on screen, this movie slips into feeling like a fan film, and not in a good way. Like, it's just not good. It's not even like not good actors or not good choices. They're just not professional quality. And while it's great to have Raiden and Shang played by Asian actors, neither of the actors who have been chosen have the screen presence to play a god. So those scenes, with the exception of their amazing VFX, just don't crackle the way that they should. And they certainly don't live up to the actors who first made those roles famous and why they're still famous to this day. So both those characters feel like a letdown. And then the fight choreography. I know that's a big problem. That's a big thing to have in the bad category for a fighting movie. But again, the VFX are so good, it's okay. It makes up for that. But the fights are nowhere near the level of, say, John Wick or most modern martial arts movies. There aren't even a lot of fights actually at all in the movie, to be honest with you. But again, the VFX kind of made up for that. Now, I believe they changed some of the Mortal Kombat mythology here, and some of the changes I thought, to be fair, were interesting. I was like, oh, that's a cool idea. I kind of like that. But we'll have to discuss that in the spoiler review. And the end tease, oh, I loved it. I always tell you that it's important to start a movie on a high note, and even more important to end the movie on the high note. And I feel that Mortal Kombat achieves both those things. Fantastic start, very strong finish that makes you be like, okay, let's see that. So that's fantastic. I would like a sequel to this movie, to be honest with you. I'd just get rid of half the cast. I would get a new writer and a new director, and I would call up David Leitch and Chad Stahelski, who also just did Nobody. They produced that, and be like, come fix my movie. Give me some great, not only does the fight choreography need to be better, but so does how those fights are filmed. Just not as strong. But I still feel that this movie could be the start of something. I see potential here. And again, I had fun watching it. I felt it was very much a popcorn flick. It felt like a fun summer movie. Get a popcorn and a fizzy soda and put your feet up. This year, you might have to do it at home, but it still serves that purpose. It was fun. I laughed, I winced, as one should, watching a Mortal Kombat movie. As for the violence and gore, I thought it was just enough to please Mortal Kombat fans, and for mainstream viewers and casual Mortal Kombat fans to be like, oh yeah, I'm watching a Mortal Kombat story. But it wasn't so much that it makes it too hard to watch the film. I think it still is acceptable to most viewers. Unless you're really squeamish, but then you wouldn't watch Mortal Kombat anyway. So that's my non-spoiler review of Mortal Kombat. I had fun, and I really want to see that sequel because of the tease. My favorite character. All right, so anyway, if you choose to watch it, join me for the spoiler review, which will actually be up pretty shortly later this evening. All right, so share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.